सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। So the text Atmabodha begins with the importance of self-knowledge. Bhagavan says, for moksha, the direct means is knowledge of the self. Why is it so? It is so because, actually speaking, bandhana is illusory, bondage is illusory. There is nothing called bondage. No one is bound. This bondage is only a notion in the mind. Since bondage is only a notion in the mind, the removal of bondage is possible only by removing the wrong notion in the mind. And wrong notion can be removed only by right understanding. So therefore, knowledge is unavoidable if moksha has to be gained. All the other means may be helpful, because for gaining the knowledge, purity of mind is necessary. So all the other sadhanas can help purify the mind, but knowledge is absolutely essential. Just like darkness can be removed only by light, in the same way, ignorance can be removed only by right knowledge. Now the question is, how will I know that knowledge has taken place in me? That I have had my, I have understood myself rightly. How will I know? So Bhagavan says, it is, you are asking as though sun is there and it is covered by cloud. How will I know whether sun exists or not, even after the cloud is removed? So when the ignorance is removed, the self shines itself as absolute infinite consciousness. Just like when the clouds are removed, sun shines by itself. No other special light is necessary to see the sun. In the same way, when the ignorance is removed, the consciousness, which is the nature of the self, it shines forth by itself. Then Bhagavan answers another possible question. The question is, see, this practice of knowledge, in this practice of knowledge, you are actually cultivating a particular thought. You are eliminating the thought of ignorance. You are eliminating or you are replacing the erroneous thought by the right thought. But ultimately what happens? Wrong thought is gone, but the right thought takes its place. So in what way that can be called as knowledge? It is also a kind of thought. It is also a kind of superimposition. It is also a kind of imagination. One is gone, the other comes. Just like, for example, if your hands are dirty, you apply soap. Now dirt is gone, soap has come. Now you wash your hands with water. Now soap has gone, water has come. Then you wipe your hands with a towel. Now what has happened? Water has gone, towel has come. So every time the remover replaces the removed. So in what way it is a solution? So then Bhagavan says, no. The Vedantic thought is not like other thoughts. A Vedantic thought is not like any other worldly thought. The beauty of a Vedantic thought is the Vedantic thought destroys the worldly thought and then takes the seeker to the truth and then destroys by itself. It doesn't remain there. It takes the seeker to the truth and disappears by itself. So yesterday we had seen it in detail. We have to take the support of the Vedantic thought. What is the Vedantic thought? Aham Brahma Asmi. I am pure consciousness. This is the Vedantic thought. I am the body. I am a jiva. I am an individual. I am a man. I am a woman. These are all worldly thought of ignorance. So when we cultivate this Vedantic thought replaces the worldly thought. But when you say, I am consciousness, first you take the help of a thought, but then what happens to you? You are no longer entertaining that thought, you become that. You become consciousness. So when I say, I am consciousness, I start feeling consciousness, I become consciousness, and once I become consciousness, then the thought is no more of any use. It is something like, we lie down to sleep. So what is the desire we entertain just before going to sleep? I want to sleep. This desire is there. So now you may ask the question, as long as you are desiring, you will not sleep. Then we say, no. This desire takes the person to sleep, and once the person is asleep, this desire will automatically disappear. So this desire that I want to sleep, it is a thought. But what is this thought doing? This thought is taking the person to sleep, and once the person enters into sleep, this thought automatically drops. In the same way, the Vedantic thought takes us to that point, and the thought drops. What remains is only consciousness. So Bhagavan gives an example here. How? Jalam kataka renuvat. The water is muddy, already impurities are there. You as though add another impurity. Now one may think you are actually increasing the impurity in the water. Then we say, no, this impurity is such that it takes away all the other impurities. So that kataka renu, the dust of kataka net, what does it do? It sticks with the suspended mud particles, becomes heavy, and then they all settle down. What remains is only water. Vedantic thought destroys the non-Vedantic thought. Both the thoughts are gone. What remains is only the ultimate truth preached by Vedanta, which is consciousness. Now a person may say, fine, I understand. I understand that I am pure consciousness. Let us assume that I realize also that I am consciousness. But that is okay. But what about the world? I have known my truth, but what about the truth of the world? Then Bhagavan says, the moment you know yourself, you have known everything, because this world has no existence by itself. It is only a projection on consciousness, which is you. The whole world is none other than a projection upon the reality, and that reality is you. The whole world is a projection on consciousness. How? Just like a dream. Samsaraha swapnatulyaha. So what happens in the dream? The entire dream is a projection of the mind of the waker. Waker's mind projects the entire world. The world has no existence. What exists is only the waker. In the same way, this world also. You are the very center. You are the very substratum of the entire world. So some few examples are given. What are the examples? Shuktika rajatam yatha. Like the silver seen on the shell. What exists is only shell, but you see it as silver. It is all because of the wrong understanding. It is all because of ignorance. What exists is only shell, but you see it as silver. Or it is like budbudani varini, like the bubbles seen in water. What exists is only water, but water appears as different kinds of bubbles. In the same way, the whole world exists in you. You are the substratum. You are the reality. Everything else is only a projection. The bubble has no existence other than water. It is merely a name and a form. What exists is only water. Or another example is given. What is the other example? Hatake katakativat. Just like various ornaments existing on gold. What exists is only gold. All the other names and forms, they actually don't exist. What exists is only gold. In the same way, what exists is only consciousness, nothing else. Brahma satyam jagat mithya. So now again a question comes up. If consciousness is everything, we find that consciousness is as though trapped in different beings. I am conscious, you are conscious, he is conscious, she is conscious. Now it appears as though consciousness are different, manifesting in different beings. Are they different? So Bhagavan says, no, they are not different. They only appear to be different. How? Yatha akashaha, like the space. The space is only one, but this space appears to be different based on the limiting adjuncts or the conditionings. There is a wall space, there is room space, there is this space, that space, so many space, but actually space is only one. But when our attention is upon the conditioning, the space appear to be different. In the same way, when our attention is upon this conditioning, what is this conditioning? Body. Consciousness appears to be different. Actually, consciousness is all-pervading. This topic will be taken up later also. Now the question is, Bhagavan, what is that conditioning which you are talking of? So, one more verse on this conditioning. Verse number 11. Nanopadhivashadeva jati varnashramadayah atmanyaropitastoye rasavarnadi bhedavat. Nana upadhivashad eva. It is only because of nana upadhis, various kinds of conditionings, that consciousness appears to be many. How? An example is given. Rasa varnadi bhedavat toye. Water is only one, but we call this water as different names, based on rasa, taste, based on varna, color, etc. Adi. Water is actually tasteless. Water is actually odorless. Water is actually colorless. But then we attribute all these properties to water, isn't it? Sweet water, salty water, fragrant water, colored water. Actually, water has no color or odor, etc. But we attribute those properties to water. In the same way, this Atma is actually propertyless, but then we attribute properties to it. In what way? Jati, varna, ashrama, adaya, etc. What are the etc.? Jati. Jati means what? Caste. Varna. Varna means color. Ashrama, station in life. So he is a Brahmana jati, he is a Vaishya jati, Shudra jati, Kshatriya jati. Actually that jati belongs to whom? The body, not to the Atma. Atma is pure, Satchit Ananda. Or Varna, color of the body. He is dark, she is fair, whatever. So all these properties, they don't belong to Atma, it belongs only to the conditioning. Again, ashrama. What is ashrama? Brahmacharya ashrama, Grihastha ashrama, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa ashrama. These ashramas also don't belong to the Atma. They're all different conditionings. And what happens through conditioning? Our attention is more upon the conditionings than the content. All the problems that we see in the society, all the problems are because our attention is upon the conditioning and not upon the content. What is the content? Atma is the content. And what is the nature of Atma? It is Sat, Chit, Anand. Look at ourselves. What is it that we clearly experience? We experience Sat, existence. Yes or no? We experience existence. Yes. We experience consciousness. Yes or no? Yes. This is a common experience in each and every one of us. We exist. We are conscious of our existence. This alone is the truth. The rest, everything is a projection of the mind. What are the projections? I am a man, I am a woman. I am a Brahmana, I am a Kshatriya, whatever. These are all the concepts formed by the mind. These are all the imaginations of the mind. I am a Grihastha I am a Grihastha I am a Sannyasi. Again, it's a concept of the mind. The reality is only one. What is the reality? Existence, consciousness. This is what we experience. The rest, everything is a superimposition. The rest, everything is an imagination of the mind. And therefore, it is not true. So what does Bhagavan say? Pay attention to what actually exists. What you imagine is not what is the truth. What you experience is the truth. All the problems in the society is only because of these concepts made by the human minds. Truth is only one. We are all one. In what sense? With respect to Atma, with respect to existence, consciousness, we are all one. Yes, with respect to imaginations, we are all different. So what does Bhagavan say? Pay attention to the content, not to the conditionings. Now again, this conditioning in a Shastric way, how these conditionings are defined in the scriptures, that topic is taken up in the next 3 verses. Bhagavan says these conditionings are of type 3. One is Thula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira. These are the 3 conditionings, and this Atma is different from the 3 conditionings. So let us chant verse number 12, which talks about Sthula Sharira. Panchikrita Mahabhuta Sambhavam Karma Sanchitam Shariram Sukha Dukkhanam Bhogayatana Muchyate. Yes. So this verse talks about the gross body, or what is called as Sthula Sharira. So earlier in Tattva Bodha, we have seen these topics in lot of detail. Those who want greater details in it, refer Tattva Bodha and Viveka Chudamani. So here briefly we will go through what it is. So what is this gross body? Gross body or Sthula Sharira is the physical body which we see. It is called Sthula. Why is it called Sthula? It is called Sthula because it is perceived by our senses. You can see, you can hear, smell, taste, touch, etc. This physical body is called Sthula Sharira because it is perceived by our sense organs. What is it made of? So it is written, Panchikrita Mahabhuta Sambhavam. It is born out of, it is made of. What is it made of? Pancha Mahabhutas, 5 elements. What kind of Pancha Mahabhutas? Panchikrita Mahabhuta. Those elements which have undergone Panchikaranam. Have you heard of Panchikaranam anywhere? Tattvabodha, yes. So, those elements which have undergone Panchikaranam. In short, gross 5 elements. This physical body is made of gross 5 elements. What are the 5 elements? Space, air, fire, water, earth. The process of Panchikaranam is described in Tattvabodha. Briefly we'll go through. So when creation begins, the creation has to begin from the unmanifest to the manifest, from the subtle to the gross. So how does it happen? So first we have Pancha Mahabhutas which are in the subtle form, Sukshma form. So air, water, fire, earth, etc., they are in their own, they are in their purest form, which cannot be perceived. So then they undergo what is called as Panchikaranam. So what happens in Panchikaranam? Each element divides itself into 2. One part, one half is kept to itself, the other part is divided into 4 further, and each part goes and mixes with the other. So after the process, you will find in every element there is 50% of itself, 12.5% of all the other elements, 1/8 portion of other elements. So for example, once Panchikaranam happens, Akasha will have 50% of Akasha, 12.5% of Vayu, 12.5% of Agni, 12.5% of Jala, and 12.5% of Prithvi. In this way, other elements also. So this process is called Panchikaranam. So what happens after Panchikaranam? The subtle 5 elements, they become gross 5 elements. Gross 5 elements mean the elements which we see around. So it is not in its purest form, it has a mixture, it has a mix of all the other elements. So this physical body is made up of gross 5 elements. And that is why we are able to see it. Panchikrita Mahabhuta Sambhavam. Okay. Why is it made? Karma Sanchitam. Actually, this body is tailor-made. Tailor-made means what? Our own past actions as a karma phala has given this body to us. This body has come because of our past actions. So karma sanchita means karma nirmitam, created by our own karma. Every being, not only human beings. If karmas are papa karmas, then animal body is given, bird, insect, all those bodies are given. If actions are punya karmas, then devata body is given. If the actions are of mixed type, punya karma is also there, papa karma is also there, then they say the human body is given. So depending upon our karmas, we are given different bodies. So it is our own creation, created by our action. But what is the function of this body? The function of this body is Shariram Sukha Dukkhanam Bhoga Ayatanam Uchyate. This body is an abode of residence. So in this body, the jivas reside. Why does the jiva reside here? So that Sukha Dukkhanam Bhoga Ayatanam, in order to experience Sukha and Dukkha. So residing in this body, the Jivatma, he goes through Sukha and Dukkha. If Punya Karma, then Sukha. If Papa Karma, then Dukkha. So Sukha and Dukkha he goes through. So he has to remain somewhere. There has to be some house where he can dwell. So this body is a house where he dwells. It's a rented house. What is the rent he has to pay? Going through the karma phala is the rent. And once all the prarabdha karmas are exhausted, this residence is dropped. So what is this physical body? It is bhoga ayatanam, abode of residence. All these details we had seen in Tattvabodha. So this is called Sthula Sharira. Why are we discussing this? We are discussing to say that this Atma is not Sthula Sharira. It is different from this body. Now we come to Sukshma Sharira. What is Sukshma Sharira? Verse number 13. Pancha prana mano buddhi dashendriya samanvitam apanchikrita bhutotham sukshmangam bhoga sadhanam. Yes. Now comes Sukshma Sharira. What is this Sukshma Sharira? In English we call it as subtle body. S-U-B-T-L-E, body. Subtle body. So what is the subtle body? With what is it made of? Sukshma Sharira is made up of Sukshma Pancha Mahabhutas. Apanchikrita Bhutotham. Those Pancha Mahabhutas which have not undergone Panchikaranam. Meaning subtle 5 elements. So therefore, can we see it? It cannot be seen. It cannot be perceived by our senses. So therefore, we cannot see the mind of others. We can only see the physical body. We will not be able to see the mind. Why? Because the mind is made up of subtle elements. That which is subtle cannot be perceived by the gross senses. So, apanchikrita bhutotham. What is this Sukshma Sharira? What are the components? Pancha prana, manas, buddhi and dashendriyas. 10 indriyas. What are the 10 indriyas? Again, reference Tattvabodha. Pancha jnanendriya and then pancha karmendriyas. What are the pancha jnanendriyas? The organ of hearing, the organ of touch, the organ of seeing, the organ of smell, the organ of taste. These are the pancha jnanendriyas. What are the pancha karmendriyas? Hands, legs, tongue, genital organ, anus. So these are the pancha karmendriyas. So together 10 plus pancha pranas. What are the pancha pranas? Prana, apana, vyana, udana, samana. Pancha pranas. So how many total now? 15 plus mano buddhi plus 2. Mana, mind, buddhi, intellect. So 10 senses, pancha jnanendriyas, pancha karmendriyas, pancha pranas and manas and buddhi. So totally 17. So this Sukshma Sharira is composed of 17 components. What is the function of the Sukshma Sharira? Sukshmangam bhoga sadhanam. It is the instrument of experiencing. Sthula Sharira is the abode of experience, the house of experience, whereas the Sukshma Sharira is the instrument of experience. Through that instrument you experience. So suppose Sthula Sharira is there and no Sukshma Sharira, will you experience? No. Can you give an example? When you are in deep sleep, Sukshma Sharira is not there, only Sthula Sharira is there. So even when somebody touches you, you are not aware. Because the instrument is missing. Or in a dead body. In a dead body, Sthula Sharira is there, Sukshma Sharira is not there. Again, perception doesn't take place. So the Sukshma Sharira is called the instrument of experience. Sthula Sharira is the abode or the house of experience. So this jiva remaining in the body experiences sukha and dukkha through the sukshma sharira. So we have seen sthula and sukshma. Now the third one, which is called as karana sharira. Again we are discussing all this for what? To say that I am not this. I am not my physical body and I am not my mind intellect also. I am different from sukshma sharira and sthula sharira. Now the third one is karana sharira. Verse number 14. Anadya vidya nirvachya karanopādhiruchyate upadhitritayādanyam atmanamavadharayet. Yes. Karanopādhiruchyate. This is called Karanopādhi or Karana Sharira. So what is English translation for Karana Sharira? Not casual body, causal body. Causal. C-A-U-S-A-L. Causal body. Why is it called causal body? It is called causal because it is the cause of the other two. It is the karana of the other two. From this body come the other two bodies. Sukshma and sthula shariras, they come from the karana sharira. So what is this karana sharira? It is nothing but the seed form of the entire individual. The entire personality put in a seed form is this karana sharira. So what is its nature? It is of the nature of anadi avidya. It is of the nature of beginningless ignorance. This individual is nothing but is born out of ignorance. What exists is only God. What exists is only Satchit Ananda Atma, but out of ignorance. Now, this Satchit Ananda Atma considers itself to be a limited, finite entity. So, what is the birth of the individual? What is the cause of the birth? The cause of birth is ignorance. Avidya. When did this ignorance begin? This is the question normally asked. Which is the first birth? When was I first born? Because every time we say, because of karma you got this body. But when was this karma done? It was done in the previous birth. But why that previous birth? It was because of the previous to previous karma. So again it goes on and on. When was the first birth? So then first birth is anadi, beginningless. Now we may ask, why beginningless? This is beginningless because let us assume that it has a beginning. Let us assume avidya has a beginning. Avidya means ignorance. Let us assume at a particular time avidya began. So before that time, what should be there? What is the opposite of avidya? Vidya, knowledge. Now if you assume that knowledge was there and then at a particular time ignorance began, that is meaningless. Because from knowledge, ignorance cannot come. Isn't it? So what is the only possible logical explanation? Ignorance has to be beginningless. Because it cannot come from knowledge. So therefore we say anadi avidya. So this karana sharira is of the nature of anadi avidya. It is of the nature of ignorance. The beginningless ignorance. So though it is beginningless, it is not endless. When will it end? When will avidya end? Avidya ends with vidya, isn't it? Only vidya can put an end to avidya. So though it is beginningless, it is not endless. Anadi avidya and anirvachya. Anirvachya means indescribable. You can't describe it. Why you can't describe it? It is Maya, but why you can't describe it? You can't describe it because for any description, how do you describe a thing? You describe a thing as existent or non-existent, isn't it? It exists, it doesn't exist. This is how you describe. Now the strange thing about this avidya is, neither you can put it as absolute existence, nor can you put it in the category of non-existence. Why? Can you say it exists? You can't say, because when vidya comes, avidya is gone. So it has no absolute existence. Absolute existence should exist all the time. It doesn't. Now, can you say it is non-existent? You can't say non-existent also, because all our suffering is because of avidya. Why are we suffering? We are suffering because of avidya. So can you call it as non-existent? No. So neither can you call this non-existent, nor can you call it existent. Just like the dream world. Can you call this dream world existent or non-existent? Which category will you put? You can't call it existence, because once you wake up, it is not there. You can't call it non-existence also, because in the dream you shout and scream. Because of that, you experience it very clearly. So that is why it is called anirvachya, something which cannot be categorized, clearly classified. Again, it is called anirvachya because it is in the seed form. In the seed form, you can't make out the difference. The huge people tree, it comes from a small seed. In the seed, what do you see? Remember, everything is there. All details are there in the seed. How many leaves, how many twigs, how many branches, everything is there. That detail is there in the seed. But are you able to see anything? Are you able to make out anything? Nothing. So it is only, we can say, anirvachya. It is indescribable. Isn't it? In the same way, the entire personality of a person is there in that karna sharira, which is not manifest, which is latent, which is not clearly seen. So therefore it is called anirvachya. As far as the sthula sharira is concerned, the lifespan, we can say it is around 70 to 100 years, physical body. What about sukshma sharira? When does it end? Will it end with the death of the physical body? No. When does it end? It is said it ends only during pralaya, when all the matter go back to their causal form. That is pralaya. The manifested matter, they go back to the state of, what you call, it become unmanifest, the state of unmanifestation. That is called as pralaya. So this sukshma sharira, it goes away only in pralaya. What about karana sharira? Karana sharira is something which doesn't go away even in pralaya also. Then what is the only way of putting an end to karana sharira? Knowledge. It is only self-knowledge which puts an end to the karana sharira. Karana sharira can be imagined like the farmers, they collect the seeds, After harvest, what do? After the crops, they collect the seeds, they dry it up, expose it to sunlight, moonlight, etc. and they preserve it. For what? For the next cultivation. They keep the seeds. This karana sharira is something like that. Srishti, sthiti, laya. During laya, this karana sharira remains. For what? So that for the next srishti, this jiva can again take up different bodies. And this karana sharira comes to an end with self-knowledge. Why are we discussing all this? We are discussing all this because to emphasize the truth that the Atma, the self, it is different from all the three. So see the next line. Upadhi tritayat anyam atmanam avadharet. Understand Atma to be different from the three bodies. The Satchit Ananda Atma has nothing to do with the Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira or Karana Sharira. It is something different. Now don't say Atma is something else. We are talking of ourselves. So I am different from Sthula, Sukshma, Karana Sharira. This is the way we have to understand. So this discussion is about Sharira Trayas. Now the next is the same topic taken up with Panchakoshas. So what should be said? I am different from the Panchakoshas. The next verse number 15. Panchakoshadi yogena tattanmaya iva sthitah shuddhatma nilavastradi yogena sphatiko yatha. Yes. So this Atma is different from Panchakosha. What are the Panchakoshas? Where have we studied it? Again, Tattvabodha. Tattvabodha or Viveka Chudamani. In both it is there. So what are the Panchakoshas? Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and then Anandamaya Kosha. So that is why Atma Bodha is studied after Tattva Bodha. Because explanations are not given. It is only said Panchakoshadi Yogena. What are those Panchakoshas? So this text is advanced text, we can say, to be studied after Tattva Bodha. So now what is being said here? Because of this Panchakosha, these Panchakoshas are as though covering the self. Tattanmaya ivasthitaha. An example is given. How these Panchakoshas are covering the Atma? Shuddhatma Neela Vastradi Yogena Sphatigo Yatha. Just like a crystal. So there is a crystal. Now what is the color of a crystal? It is colorless, isn't it? But suppose you keep a Neela Vastra, a blue color cloth near it. What happens to the crystal? The crystal becomes blue. Isn't it? Now it appears as though there is a blue crystal kept. Actually, crystal has no color, but because of this blue color cloth, the color gets superimposed upon the crystal and the crystal appears blue. Now you say blue crystal. Actually, it is not blue crystal. It is colorless crystal only. Nothing has happened, only the appearance has changed. Isn't it? In the same way, when this Atma, this Satchit Ananda Atma comes in contact with the Panchakosha, the properties of the Panchakoshas as though get superimposed upon this Atma, and now we describe this Atma based on the properties of Panchakosha. First, let us say Annamaya Kosha. What is Annamaya Kosha? Nothing but the physical body. Now, what do we consider ourselves? Actually, we are existence consciousness, but now we consider ourselves as this Panchakosha. I am this body. I am fair, I am dark, I am fat, I am lean, I am tall, I am short. I am old, I am young. I am sick, I am healthy. All these are what? They are all descriptions of Annamaya Kosha. Descriptions of Annamaya Kosha is not the descriptions of Atma, but we have misunderstood ourselves. We are very clear that this Annamaya Kosha is me. Isn't it? This is the way it covers. Kosha means covering. It takes our attention away from the Atma. It distracts our attention from the true self. That is the meaning. So that is Annamaya Kosha. What about Pranamaya Kosha? What are its functions? Hunger, thirst. That is the function of prana. So what do I say? I am hungry. I am hungry. I don't say I am Satchidananda Atma. I say I am hungry, I am thirsty. So the properties of Pranamaya Kosha I superimpose upon myself. All those wonderful research that is happening in what to eat, how to eat, what are the different kinds of preparations, all these are nothing but the distractions created by the Pranamaya Kosha, isn't it? People are so busy trying out new different dishes to satisfy their tongue. This is how it covers. Pranamaya Kosha covers the self. Something else becomes more important than knowing yourself. Right? Pranamaya Kosha. Next one is Manomaya Kosha. What does Manomaya Kosha do? It is full of emotions. Varieties of emotions rise in our mind. We are so identified with the emotions that our attention is taken away. I am sad, I am happy, I am elated, I am dejected, depressed. I am hurt, I am hurt. I am a very sentimental person, Your words are hurting me. What does it mean? The person is so attached to the mind that the functions of the mind are taken as my own function. If the mind is sad, I don't say mind is sad. What do I say? I am sad. The identification is so much that mind is something different from me, but the properties of the mind, I take it as my property. That is how the Manomaya Kosha covers the self. Next one is Vijnanamaya Kosha, intellectual sheath. Intellect always questions, what is this, what is that? And whole of my life is gone in trying to understand the world, deep into the space what is happening, deep inside the atom what is happening, deep inside the ocean what is happening. Whole life is gone trying to understand what is this world. The most important thing is not understood. What is it? I have not understood myself. This is how the intellect creates distraction. Trying to know what is unimportant. Trying to know what is insignificant. And what is this intellectual idea about oneself? I am this body. I am very much convinced. That definition of oneself is given by this intellectual sheath. Aham, the ego, is created by this intellectual sheath. I am this. I am this body. I am this mind. I am this intellect. This idea is there in the intellectual sheath, which is called as Vijnanamaya Kosha. So this way, it distracts my attention from the real self. And the fifth one is Anandamaya Kosha, bliss sheath. What does it do? Actually, where is Ananda? Ananda is my nature. I need not seek it outside. But this bliss sheath projects Ananda outside. Indulge in pleasures. There is your happiness. So what do? We go out. Through our senses we go out seeking pleasures from the world. Right? Priya, Moda, Pramoda, if you remember. When you see the thing, there is a joy. Priya. When you get the thing, there is a greater joy. Moda. When you indulge in the thing, there is a greatest joy. Pramoda. Priya, Moda, Pramoda. The gradations of bliss or happiness. But actually, what is the source of happiness? Actually, the source of happiness is Atma alone. But our attention is distracted. So instead of seeking Atma, we seek Anatma in the search of happiness. This is how that bliss sheath, Anandamaya Kosha, covers the reality. So what does Bhagavan say here? Just like the crystal, colorless crystal, appears to be a colored crystal because of the contact of a colored cloth. In the same way, this Atma which has nothing to do with these Panchakoshas, this Atma appears to have gained the properties of Panchakosha. Actually, nothing has happened. Crystal is colorless only, but it's only an appearance. In the same way, Atma appears to have the properties of the Panchakoshas. So now what has to be done? Now we have understood the problem. What is the problem? Satchit Ananda Atma has been superimposed by the properties of Shariratrayam and Kosha Panchakam. Now what has to be done? In order to gain the true Atma, what has to be done? That is the next verse. Verse number 16. Vapustushadibhik koshaihi yuktam yuktyaavaghatataha atmanamantaram shuddham vivichya tandulam yatha. Yes. What has to be done? An example is given. What is the example? See the paddy. What is that paddy? The grain with the husk is called paddy. So if you want to remove that grain, what do? So that grain, rice grain, is covered with so many koshas. So many layers of coverings are there. The first is the husk. The second is what you call as a bran. So all of them have to be removed. How do? How do you remove it? You pound it, isn't it? This is called avaghata, pound it. So when you pound it, the husk becomes separate, the rice becomes separate. So in the same way, tushadibihi koshehi yuktam. Tushadibihi. Tusha means husk. So this tandulam means rice. This tandulam is covered by tushadibihi, husk, bran, etc. They are the koshas, they are the covering, they are the sheets. How to remove it? Avaghatataha, by pounding it, you remove it. In the same way, this Shuddham Antaram Atmanam, this pure Atma, which is inside Antaram, inner self, it is also covered by the koshas. What are the koshas? The Pancha koshas. So this Atma is also as though covered by the koshas. So what has to be done? You will have to pound. How will you pound? Yuktya, by logic, by reasoning. So here pounding is not physically pounding. Physically pound this body and then Atma comes separate. Don't think that way. So yuktya avaghatataha, pound. But that pounding is not physical, it is intellectual. Yuktya, logic. Use your logic, use your reasoning. Don't blindly accept something. Use your own experience, and through your own experience you will come to know that this Atma is something different. This Atma is something different from the physical body. It is different from the intellectual, emotional sheets. It is something different. Use logic. What is that logic? Bhagavan himself is going to give. Vedanta is not something you have to just believe. It is not. There is a logical explanation given. How to think logically, that is also given here. All the concepts are based on logic alone. That's the beauty of Vedanta. So this is what you have to do in Mananam. I am not the body. How? Why? So then you have to use the logic. Then you do Mananam, reflection. I am not the body because this. So what is that logic? So one by one, now Bhagavan gives some of the important principles of Vedanta. Let us see the next verse number 17. Sada sarvagato pyatma na sarvatra bhasate buddha vevavabhaseta swacheshu pratibimbavat. Yes. Now the question is, you say consciousness is everywhere, but our experience is consciousness is limited only to this body. How? Naturally, a logical explanation is needed. What is our experience? Consciousness is limited to this body. It is not experienced beyond this body. I see this consciousness, rather I infer consciousness in others' body also, but there are so many places where consciousness is not seen. The table is there, the mic is there, all this, the place is there. I don't see consciousness there. How can you say there is consciousness everywhere? You say consciousness is infinite. How can you say it? So that question is answered here. So this is called yuktya avaghatataha, using logic. So what is said here? Sada sarvagataha atma. Atma is all pervading. Though it is all pervading, na sarvatra avabhasate. It doesn't shine. It doesn't make its presence felt everywhere. Though it is everywhere, but it doesn't make its presence felt everywhere. How? An example is given. Buddha vevavabhaseta swacheshu pratibimbavat. This consciousness shines only in buddhi. Here, sukshma sharira. This consciousness shines only in the buddhi, just like swacheshu pratibimbavat. Just like pratibimba, reflection of the sun, is seen only in swacheshu, only on a polished surface. The sunlight is everywhere, but can you see the sun everywhere? No, you can see the sun only on a polished surface. Isn't it? On a mirror, in a mirror you clearly see the sun. But the very same sunlight is falling on a piece of stone, but you are not able to see. Why you are not able to see? Not because sunlight is not there, only because the surface is not able to reflect it. In the same way, consciousness is everywhere, but that consciousness is available for experience only where there is buddhi, there is sukshma sharira. This is the thing. Only where there is sukshma sharira, the consciousness is available for experiencing. So we are all experiencing consciousness. Why? There is sukshma sharira there. There is a mind intellect there. Consciousness reflects there. Why consciousness is not seen on the, earth? Because there is no sukshma sharira. Simple. This is called logic. And it is convincing also. In a piece of stone, you don't see consciousness. It is there, but it doesn't express as life. It doesn't express as sentient principle. It doesn't express. So it appears as though it is dead, there is no consciousness only. It is not that. Consciousness is there, but it doesn't express as life. In any living being, there is consciousness expressing as life because there is sukshma sharira. What happens at the time of death? Sukshma sharira goes away. Now, will that sthula sharira be able to reflect consciousness? No. So therefore, the sthula sharira, the physical body, lies down inert. So this is the logic. So consciousness is, don't say consciousness is not there. Consciousness expressing as life is not there everywhere. We accept. But to say that consciousness is not there is wrong. Consciousness is everywhere. Now this is called yukti, logic. But Bhagwan, why do you say I am different from body, mind, intellect, etc.? No, again, logic is used. Why do I say that I am different from Panchakosha? Why do I say that I am different from Sthula, Sukshma, Karana, Shariras? The logic is, observer is different from the observed. This logic is given in the next verse. Verse number 18. Dehendriya mano buddhi prakritebhyo vilakshanam tadvritti sakshinam vidyat atmanam rajavatsada. Yes, this atma is vilakshanam. Vilakshanam means different. Different from what? Deha, indriya, mana, buddhi, prakriti. This atma, this self means what? Myself. I am different from what? Deha, physical body. Indriya, the sense organs. Mana, mind. Buddhi, intellect. They are all prakriti, matter. Vilakshanam, I am different from all of them. Why do I say I am different? Tad vritti sakshinam. Who am I? Who is this self? This self is a sakshi. Sakshi means a witness. What is it witnessing? Tad vritti sakshinam. Vritti here means pravritti. Pravritti means activities. Deha, Indriya, Mana, Buddhi, they are all performing activities. Physical body is performing activity. Indriyas are performing activity of seeing, hearing, etc. Mind is performing the activities of desiring. Intellect is performing the activity of thinking. All these are happening. What is the self doing? The self is just witnessing. Now whatever is said, bring into our own experience. What is our experience? Everything is witnessed by me, isn't it? Body is functioning. What am I doing? I am witnessing the function. Heart is beating, kidney is functioning, so many things are happening inside. What is my experience? I am just a witness. I am just seeing it, experiencing it. I am an observer. All these things are observed. So what is this Atma doing? Just it's a Sakshi. Again, so many thoughts come in the mind. What am I doing? I am just watching those thoughts, isn't it? The fact is this. You may get identified with the thought and go here and there. That's a different matter. But actually, what is this self doing? It is just watching. Sakshi. The very fact that you are able to watch these things shows that you are different from what is observed. You are different from what is experienced. The experiencer is different from the experienced. The observer is different from the observed. Now this is our experience. At the seat of meditation, they are all wonderful tips for meditation. This is all what we have to do. Paying attention to consciousness means what? Remain a witness of everything. Trying to know myself means what? Try to abide in what you are. Trying to abide means what? Witness everything else. Remain as consciousness. Remain as consciousness, being conscious of all the things that is happening around. At the body level, at the mind level, you just witness and say, I am not this, I am only watching them. Remain a mute, indifferent witness. The very fact that I am able to witness proves that I am different from all of them. How? An example is given. Atmanam Rajavat Sada. Like Raja. Who is a Raja? King. This is the example given. What does the king do? When all those apsaras dance, he also don't go and dance. What does he do? He sits comfortably there and watches everything. So many things proceed in the, in that hall, darbar. Isn't it? The Vidwans, the scholarly people, they, elaborate upon various scriptures. So many discussions happen. So many dance and music also happen. What does the Raja do? He doesn't get involved. He's just witnessing. In his presence, everything happens. Isn't it? He's a witness. Nothing would have happened without him. He is there, therefore things are happening. But he himself is not involved in anything. That way, like a Raja, the self is remaining in you. Like a king. He is a Lord. It is because of him that all the functions are happening in the body perfectly. Not only in the body, in the whole universe also. It is because of him. Not doing anything, remaining a witness, he presides over everything. He is the president. The one who presides is called president. He is a Sakshi, witness. So this is the way we have to meditate upon this self. It is our own true nature. It is not somebody else. That Lord is a very witness in us. Bring that Lord closer and closer to you. In fact, He is the closest. You can't go further nearer to yourself, isn't it? The witness in you is the closest thing in you. And who is that closest thing in you? None other than Bhagavan. Bhagavan himself is there as the witness. Pay attention to that witness. Then you will find every moment that Bhagavan is with you. You will experience it. This is the beauty of Vedanta. Vedanta doesn't want you to keep Bhagavan away from you. Bhagavan is the very existence in you. Right. More of it we will see tomorrow. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om.